mezzo al rumore serve qualcosa che duri.
Il Papa León XIV.
Storie vere. Incontri che cambiano la vita. Persone che costruiscono. Uno sguardo originale su ciò che accade. Tutto questo è Tracce. Ora anche in una nuova versione digitale, per raccontare sempre più storie di gente che vive. Tracce, la rivista internazionale di Comunione e Liberazione. In mezzo al rumore serve qualcosa che duri.
Il Papa León XIV.
Storie vere. Incontri che cambiano la vita. Persone che costruiscono. Uno sguardo originale su ciò che accade. Tutto questo è Tracce. Ora anche in una nuova versione digitale, per raccontare sempre più storie di gente che vive. Tracce, la rivista internazionale di Comunione e Liberazione.
Questo è un luogo che genera dialogo,
Qualcuno che si impegna, che si batte.
che approfondisce la conoscenza e sostiene la fiducia. È un crocevia dove si incontra chi desidera il vero, il bello, il giusto e il bene. È una testimonianza di speranza nel cuore ferito del presente. E tutto questo
Proporre con la propria vita.
esiste anche grazie a te.
Buonasera, benvenuti a tutti e a tutte, grazie per essere qui per questo incontro. A partire dal 2022
Good evening. Since the public release of ChatGPT in 2022, we have been continuously invaded not only by new applications leveraging on generative artificial intelligence, but also by information and news about the impact of artificial intelligence on our professions, society, and ourselves. Some, maybe you know that, have a kind of element of techno-evangelism. Artificial intelligence will solve our problems and make us better, while others take on some catastrophic tone. Artificial intelligence will take control and destroy us. In both cases, artificial intelligence is presented, and this is maybe also how we imagine it, as a something or someone other, which penetrates and changes our lives. And it even maybe changes us, or to changing the way we understand the human being. So this is the theme of this session, guarding the human, the anthropological impact of artificial intelligence. That is to say, how do we protect what is most true in the face of the changes that artificial intelligence brings to our actions, our relationships, our communities, and how we think and understand ourselves. We will discuss this on the basis of an important document that Pope Leo gave to the Church and to all, the encyclical Magnificat Humanitas, published on May the 15th. I invite everyone to read it because while if you listen to the different speeches on AI, everyone say that we must remain human. But the Pope leads us to understand, following the teaching of the Church, what it means to be human and where the root of this humanity and of every value lies. This is not an easy challenge, so we asked for help to our guests. Professor Javier Prades López. Please, a round of applause for him. He's a professor at the theology faculty in Madrid, and he has also been the director. He's a member of the International Theological Commission since 2009, and is a member of the Academy Doctores de España, and is also a professor in Madrid. We also have Benedetta Giovanola with us. We would like to thank her for being here with us tonight. She's professor of ethics at the University of Macerata and a UNESCO professor for practical wisdom and Jean Monnet Ethics for Inclusive Digital Europe. And she is also the president and co-founder of the startup Gaia, AI Ethics and Governance. She published recently 2 books, Ethics and AI for the Enterprises and Intelligences, Ethics and Politics or Policies for AI. So, well, following the social doctrine of the Church, we say how AI, that is to say, a certain class of technologies that have a great power how can AI help us to create a good society, a society that is good for everyone, that is oriented towards the common good, more in a way even just? And how can this technology put our lives at risk? So let's start from the word artificial intelligence. We don't talk about algorithm here. We are more interested in understanding better what we are talking about, because we all have the intuition that artificial intelligence does not share the spark of our human intelligence. But at the same time, we feel attracted and threatened by systems that not only speak, but they seem to reason or think just like us. So, Professor Prades López, how can we talk about intelligence in a digital system? Good evening, and thanks to the meeting for this invitation to come here tonight to this session on a matter that is extremely interesting for everyone. In answering your questions, I would like to contribute to the invitation to read the Magnificus Humanitas, the papal encyclical, because this shows what it is meant by intelligence, not the technical explanation of the information systems or the electromagnetic basis of artificial intelligence, but rather about the impact it has on our human life, on our experiences. So this is the perspective I would like to adopt and support tonight. Pope Leo has taken up what Pope Benedict XVI and Saint Francis said many times. So there is the risk of an imbalance between technological development, which actually is really growing, developing extremely fast. We cannot really keep up with the progress at today, and the what we call the development, the spiritual development and the human development. So the first challenge we have to overcome is to accept this call. That is to say, we cannot take for granted what we are, and we have to rediscover what we thought we knew about ourselves and the life of humanity. So this humanitas is not the general idea of what a human being is, but it means that we are all human together in a world that is impacted by these technological developments. I must say, before answering to your question, I have some suggestions in order to explain this moment in history. The Pope says we have a responsibility, generation after generation, to discover how the new contributions in human history help us to judge what is new, rerum novarum, but also to understand better what we are as human beings and as Christians. So this is not the first time in history that we are faced with this challenge. It is not the first time that we as Christians, as a Catholic, as a Christian, we need to decide, or rather we need to compare ourselves to the contributions of human history that in some way give way to so many questions. If we think about the past of ancient Christianity, the thoughts of a philosopher like Plato talks about the originality of the Italian concept of life. There was a very long debate and a very deep crisis, and before the Christian thought could find an answer, it took a long time. In the Middle Ages, Aristotle's thought was used to communicate the Christian novelty, or was it an obstacle? And we had to wait for centuries, and there were so many dramatic changes before we could solve this. So there are so many different situations. That was, well, at the time it was not the technology the problem. Then we had the first, the second, the third, and the fourth industrial revolution. Now we have the digital revolution, which makes us go through a difficult time, a time of crisis in understanding and what these technological contributions that come from our history have in terms of impact on us. The Pope, and I'm sorry, there's another reflection, in particular on intelligence. The Catholic faith has always put faith and reason together. In giving a testimony of faith, all the great Catholics have at the same time tried to explain what reasoning means, what understanding means. Agostino is very fashionable this year here at the meeting. He thought about God as a Catholic, but he also thought about what the human being is. Thomas Aquino talked and thought about what we are. And so we have to say once again today what the intelligence is. It's not something new. It's not something we don't know. We are following in the footsteps of the different phases of the Christian reflections. So if I wanted to say as a Catholic, what does it mean I believe in Jesus Christ, I cannot avoid to think about what it means to know our reality. Intelligence, human intelligence has a different quality, the Pope says. And the human dimension, well, I will not linger on that, but then Benedetta will help us to understand better the different systems and the different dimensions of human intelligence, artificial intelligence, I'm sorry. We need to be careful to our choice of words, because we use human words to describe processes that are processes of programs, machines, systems that cannot be explained with these words. We talk about memory, but a PC doesn't have a memory, it doesn't remember anything. And then intelligence, or again, we were talking in the last few days, all these programs, AI programs, seem to have decided, and altogether we don't know why, to escape human control. I don't know whether they actually did. I'm not an expert, but I have some doubts about it. But if something escapes our control, this doesn't mean that they are trying to make a rebellion, because that means we should have our free will. Well, maybe it's our fault. We humanize these systems. The intelligence, interledger or interledger from Latin, that is to say, to look inside or to create connections. So, well, what does this mean? The possibility to grasp the meaning, the sense, the idea, the essence of a certain phenomenon, or rather, the capability to understand the causes of some phenomena. So this is what it meant by understanding a phenomenon, or by understanding something. So this skill to notice differences and the skill to solve problems. So if I say that it is human to solve problems, many of you might say, well, it is AI that solves problems. It's exactly what it does. But we have to be careful. It's us, human beings, who solve problems. Maybe machines can help us but well, mine are very simple examples, but if we are at the airport, at least in the United States, and the machine takes a picture of you, and then it opens the door for you, or it doesn't. The system that sends this information, this picture to the computer, this electromagnetic flow that has registered my face, that turned it into an electromagnetic system that has been decodified on the other side. That system has no problems. It cannot have problems. The problem will be that of the policeman on the other side that will have to decide whether my face is that of a criminal or not. The system doesn't have any problem. The system just does what it has to do. Even if it is taught to decide if my white face, I am more believable than I would be with a different face.
Capire l'aiuto delle preziose.
So, well, we know this is a precious aid, the aid that we get from the systems, and I conclude with an example. If it is too simple, I apologize. At the beginning of the 20th century, there was already this debate on what it means, the human thought, and not in terms of machines that at the time were not, did not have the skills they have now. They were not challenging, but rather the materialistic theories that said that the thoughts are a product of our brain. There was a long debate also from the neurobiological point of view. One of the greatest thinkers of the beginning of the 20th century made an example, and I simplify it a bit. Maybe you remember that machine that was called abacus, which is a wooden frame with some balls that you move along some metal bars and to make very simple calculations. Well, if we look at this phenomenon, which is extremely basic, we can say that if I sum 2 plus 3 equals 5, and I move my little balls along this bar, no one could say that it is the wooden ball that thinks, that 3 balls thinks 3, 2 balls thinks 2, and the metal bar puts them together. The nature of this addition, or of a logical law, is a thought, but there are some laws in mechanics, for instance, in terms of the resistance of a matter that moves. These philosophers say, and this is something that is very well known in philosophy, there are different reality levels. If we look at these sophisticated, complex systems, we lose, in a way, the simplicity of this distinction, of this difference between the idea that doesn't have any dimension, doesn't have any weight. It's not subject to the rule of gravity. The idea of a 5 is not subject to gravity, but 5 balls would fall to the ground. So this actually doesn't solve important problems, but there can be some confusion. A machine doesn't think, just like a wooden ball cannot think, and this doesn't mean that AI cannot help us. It can help us in many different ways in everyday life, in all our culture, and it doesn't take any responsibility away from us. Thank you.
Grazie perché ci hai messo in una prospettiva di discussione.
Thank you. This is a topic that was not born yesterday, so to say. It's part of a longer story. So We often hear that artificial intelligence is also changing the labor market, for example. Some professions will disappear, others will be created, and so on. So my question is for Professor Giovanola. We don't have a crystal ball, so we cannot see the future, but what are the instruments that we could consider as playing a decisive role in the labor market, and that have to do with the survival and well-being and the dignity of each man and woman? Thank you. And I'd like to thank for the invitation that allows us to talk about new things in a context that is characterized by dialogue and shows us the importance of talk to each other about important issues. I would like to start from certain topics that Javier mentioned when he talked about the importance of language. And the choice of defining these systems as artificial intelligence system is a choice that is full of meaning. It is meaningful as regards what it means to be human and as regards what we expect from these systems. Now everybody knows probably that the expression artificial intelligence by John McCarthy in the 50s last century is an expression that was created to explore a point, that is the idea that at that time in the 50s it was possible to replicate human reasonings to such a point that could be included in some machines. This operation, from a terminological point of view, it was kind of a marketing operation, because John McCarthy, together with other researchers, had been looking for funds for years, but they were talking the research activities, automata studies. So they were focusing on the technological components of what they were doing. So they didn't find financing. But when they identified the expression artificial intelligence, they were able to attract the attention of potential financing bodies. And so in 1956, they started the research on the so-called artificial intelligence. But the word intelligence anthropomorphize the system. If I say that something is intelligence, I'm treating this thing as a human being, because there is a reference to human intelligence. And this makes us plan artificial intelligence systems that we believe to be very intelligent, or even more intelligent than we are. We often hear questions like, are they more intelligent than us? Can Claude or other AI systems be considered more intelligent than us because they can create an almost perfect text in a very limited period of time? So all of this, step by step, is leading us to a kind of comparison that leads us to the idea that we need to be perfect from a computational point of view, because these systems are systems that are able to perform highly complicated operation in terms of computational activities. They do incredible things that emulate what we do in the way they create texts or in the way they support the decision-making processes. But what we have before us since the beginning is a system that can foresee, let's say, probabilistic correlations. So for Gen AI, like large language models, they can make estimates of the kind of word can be associated to a word I wrote down. They have access to a certain number of texts, and so I can make a calculation that tells me that when I use the word sun, it's more likely to associate to this word the adjective that corresponds to warm, not the one that corresponds to cold. But AI systems, and this is connected to the question that you asked me, are not just Gen AIs, generative AI systems. And it's important to say this because in public debate with the arrival of these systems, of these Gen AI systems, like ChatGPT, for example, there is a lot of attention paid to these systems. And we forget that AI systems, non-generative AI systems that use this probability system are well spread in the labor market, for example. So we started paying so much attention to AI with reference to the labor market with the arrival of generative AI, because we started asking ourselves if these systems do things that we thought only human beings could do, then we are all at risk. Even those who perform intellectual activities, like white-collar workers, for example. So there isn't just a risk of physical activities. If we only focus on this side of Gen AI, of AI in general, we forget that there are a lot of non-generative AI systems that have been with us for a long time. Let's think, for example, human resource selection or human resource management. There are a lot of support systems that suggest to recruiters who to hire for a specific job, based on an analysis that is often automatic or semi-automatic of their CV. There are systems that allow us to evaluate performance for the management of human resources, to identify a person with a special talent, to include them in a specific training path, with the idea that this leads to more objective evaluation compared to human assessment. But the point is that everything depends on how these systems are used and how they are designed, because they may represent a fundamental support to the decision-making process if they are well designed, but they cannot replace the decision-making process within a company. Now, going back to Gen AI, there is the problem of the amount of work, because very often we talk about creation or loss of jobs. And this is an important topic, of course, but there's more to it than that. Because even when we assess that AI creates more jobs that it destroys, and this is something that we still have to demonstrate because there are very different estimates when it comes to that. Those who lose a job will not automatically take a job that has been created by AI. So even if we just think about in terms of amounts, quantities, there is still the issue of social justice. We need to understand what's the amount of automation that society can tolerate. If we want to guarantee equal access of opportunities without damaging the dignity of people, there's also something more. And that's quality, because even in the case we guarantee equal distribution of access to the labor market, what happens if the work that we perform is not gratifying? Is a kind of work that is constantly managed and evaluated by an algorithm. Wouldn't this lead to a loss of dignity in the kind of work that we do? So it's very important that we pay attention to how we add value to what artificial intelligence is providing to us in terms of equal access to job and work that is full of dignity. And it's also very important that each one of us performs a job that is meaningful, because work is not just to earn a living. It's a source of social recognition, for example. And it's a way to create community relationship. And this is a way to add value to our humanity when working. Work should not be limited to a performance that can be measured by an algorithm. I think we should go back to what is the meaning of work and the ethical meaning of work itself, giving value to specific humanistic skills that are constantly being sought after, communication, empathy, and so on. It's important that we bear this in mind when we think that everything can be automatic. Thank you. So we can see now the connection between technology and their impact on a large scale. Let's now refer to something different. Now we have apps that have been designed and are promoted as an artificial surrogate of friendship, because you have a companion, a friend. For those who have problems in finding real friends, will artificial friends be enough? And what does this tell us about our ability as human beings to be in a relationship with other people? Well, as Benedetta was saying, talking about work, we should not reduce our humanity and also our the vocational value of work, because this is part of our becoming ourselves. If in these two sides of the human life we are not satisfied, then we should ask ourselves, what is human? And that is a starting point to evaluate artificial intelligence systems in the labor market, but also in real life. Artificial friends are a source of concern for the Pope and for recent documents, not just by the Church, but also by other representatives of lay thoughts. So what do we need when we talk about friendship and work? We need to go back and rediscover the human experience as a whole. In my first comment, I showed that there is a clear difference between human intelligence and the so-called artificial intelligence. Now we have to enrich our debate and consider that our human intelligence, our spirit, is something that we understand and know only if it's connected to a body. So this corporeal element of the human condition is essential. But today we are comparing the intelligence of machines and angels. Angels are pure intelligence. They have no body. We could make this comparison. For us, it's impossible. So our intelligence, apart from the characteristics we mentioned before, is impossible to conceive if it's not linked to a body. And it's not just the body. This idea that is mind and body is a fundamental part of our experience. So each explanation of what is dignity in labor and what is a friend is connected to our experience, which is a corporeal experience. And you were talking about emulate or imitate, and that again refers to it. All these systems are trying to imitate us, but this is not the original product. If it's an imitation, it's not the same. So the importance of the human experience as a unity of body and mind, this is an experience that is full of mystery. If I had a stroke, I wouldn't be able to think anymore. So my body, as matter, is part that I cannot give up. My intelligence depends on my brain, will not be reduced. This is a fundamental dimension of the human experience. And if we think about the male and the female, all the virtual world tends to be free of genders. They only think about a brain transplanted on a machine. This is the cyborg idea. So they identify what is human to the brain. So you can transplant the brain onto a sophisticated machine, and that is human. Well, the human experience is a mysterious experience of a unity, as John Pope I talked about a different type of experience. And without that, you cannot understand what a human being is. And the third element is between the individual person, the human being. But if I say I, is the whole humanity experience expressed without considering you as a community, as a society, as parts of humanity? So also from this point of view, if we want to recognize human dignity for labor, for relationship or friendship, we need to compare to the whole human experience for the single man and for all man. So in this virtual world, we should not neglect the most powerful source of bewilderment, that is the birth. There's a lot of 20th century philosophy that talks about death being a stimulus to thought. This is not false, because death triggers a lot of questions. But even more than death, we have birth as being a trigger. I wasn't here, and then suddenly I'm here. I'm born. And this is again is linked to the generation. And then there is an evolution, because a puppy, a human puppy, a child, if you leave it alone, they will die. If you do this with a wolf puppy, maybe they'll survive, maybe not. But a wolf puppy has more possibility of surviving rather than a wolf puppy. So if you are an adult, it means you were a child first. You were the son of someone. You never cease to be the son or the daughter of someone. But when you go to the virtual field, this does not happen. If you cancel all these elements of the human condition, then it will be enough for you to have a machine telling you, oh, you look very nice today. And this is a reduction, a huge impoverishment of the human experience. And if you trust a machine like this tells you something about yourself, about the school you live in, the society you live in. And the Pope is also considering another side of this problem. Pope Leo tells us about vulnerability as a dimension of the human experience, because this dream, according to which this technological evolution is the result of what we've done so far, but this evolution does not leave space for vulnerability. Only an elite will benefit from the advantages of technology. But the Pope is telling us that pain, desire, and love are all experiences that we feel as a limitation. The human experience, the global human experience, despite its limitation and through its limitation, can become the final experience. So a virtual friend cannot do this. If a mother asks the AI program if they have to abort, what does the machine answer? People are asking machines how to raise their children. What can machine tell you about it? We could spend a whole day or a whole night talking about this to understand how huge the life of each one of us is, even though we are normal human beings, full of limitations. Without all of this, the world we will leave to those who will come will not be human. I'm sure this will not happen, but if we move in this direction, we will not be human. Thank you.
Trovo molto ricco il modo in cui abbiamo già invertito la prospettiva.
So we have inverted the perspective. We are no longer subordinated to a performing machine, but we start looking at these machines, saying that we bring about something more with our experience. We talked about friendship. What are the impacts at the level of community and society, and also in terms of democracy and citizenship? Well, I would talk about this reference to vulnerability. This is something that I have really appreciated in the Pope's encyclical because it puts the specificity of the human being at the center, so we can escape this logic of performance that has to be perfect, which in some way artificial intelligence system controls the fact that there are always answers to everything, that answers are more important than questions. But in a very difficult society like this one, is that the main challenge is to think about alternative situation and understand what kind of today and tomorrow we want to build. So in order to understand this, we need to understand that the AI systems can actually exploit some of our vulnerabilities. Well, it has to be said that if they are very well designed, they can valorize these vulnerabilities, turning them into a dimension of enhancement of the human state. And we shouldn't think that what is going to happen has already been written and there is no room for the human choice. Well, we have a lot of room for our choices, and every single one of us in our role needed to make a choice to build what is our present and our future. With reference to the theme of democracy, there are some risks that AI present because of the way they have been designed. The first risk is because the so-called epistemological risk, the way in which we shape our ideas. This kind of risk is not only linked to the social media, fake news, and we talk about AI, generative AI and disinformation, different systems of AI that can be polarized towards certain values instead of others. So this is not the only problem. This is a problem, this is true, but there is more. There is a problem also on the way in which, by which we acquire our knowledge, because this process of letting the AI doing things at our place takes us to a knowledge how we acquire information, how we shape our own ideas. So somehow this leads us to trust information that come or are shared in great quantities. So a piece of news becomes more and more credible because it is being shared many times. And then the sick offensive of the AI system, that is to say, they say we are right, whatever we might say. So if at the beginning they try to contradict us, we try to convince them, and it's not that difficult to convince them with a very basic system. I convinced a system that the Earth is flat. So, well, it's quite easy to have the AI say that we are right. But the problem is also that this the way we have from the idea is some kind of shame. We do not trust our skills when we are. We have contents that make us have doubts on our skills to understand the world. So from this point of view, we can think that our cognitive skills are not that powerful, and if we do not train them, our skills actually get weaker. So we can potentially be and do a lot of things, but if we do not train our skills well, then this doesn't happen. So this can have some risks, can create some risks, because this idea to delegate this fact, this need to have what we say confirmed, we are more convinced of our initial ideas. But on the other hand, and this is something that we do not talk about enough, we lose interest in other people's interests. And we start thinking that if someone has an opinion which is not which is different from ours, we can only have a confrontation. So this is very, very dangerous for democracy, because democracy is based also on a basic knowledge, but also on the will to have a dialogue with someone who has a position that is different from ours. So if I'm not interested in what other people say, this dialogue, this debate becomes something that is no longer interesting. So the civic tissue of democracy gets weaker, because democracy is more than just like an electoral system, but it is based it's based on mutual respect, the acknowledgement that other people are just like us. So AI systems that are designed in a way not to promote these dimensions risk to make them weaker. And there are other aspects. But if we use these systems in the right way, they become tools to enhance civic participation and democratic debate. So this is to say that it is our choice. We need to choose, but we need to make the right choices at the same time. Thank you. We are almost at the end, but I'll ask you to be very brief in your questions. You said if they are well designed, these AI systems, so they are not neutral, these technology, and there's someone who designs them. So those who design these technologies in the big tech world, what is the value that is shared? I've created some kind of suspense in order to arrive to this theme, which is very dear to me. We certainly have to somehow try and be careful to those narratives that tell us that these systems are neutral and that the only issue is how they are used. Because if these systems are not well designed, even if you use them right, they can create a lot of damage. If these systems are designed in a way, as in many cases has been shown, to exclude systematically some persons that belong to certain groups, from, for instance, managing positions in the labor market. I can use these systems in the best possible way, but there's nothing else I can do. So we need to have teams that design these machines that are inclusive, that are diversified, so that there shouldn't be just a mainstream option that is not doubted in any way. Another important aspect is to avoid this technological determination, because these systems include many values from the time they are designed. So we need to ask ourselves, what are the values we want these systems to have in order to improve the life of the community and of individuals. A third aspect, the designing exercise is also an exercise of power. So those who design these systems define the rules of the game. So one of the main questions today is the democratization of AI, which doesn't mean that it has to be accessible for everyone. This is not what it's meant by democratization. It means that they have to be designed in a more democratic way. The way they are designed must be the result of a process of a collective decision that includes the industry that is responsible for these systems, but also public actors and the civil society. So this has to be an exercise that is inclusive. And I must say that there are different examples, experiences that make us understand that designing and developing AI models and systems are different from those we have nowadays, those that were developed in a certain area of the world and that actually have certain values. We can actually invest in an AI that is more public, that can be an alternative to the private AI that we know. So this means we have also to be aware, and I'm talking to Italy, I'm talking to Europe, of our skills. So we have to abandon a mindset that makes us think that it is impossible to do something differently, as if there was just one model to be followed. We need to understand that we have the possibility to plan our future in an inclusive way, and this can recreate a balance between the differences that exist at global level. Another theme, which is fundamental in terms of democracy, is that the development of AI systems shouldn't be, once again, another dimension of that increases inequalities on a global scale. They shouldn't be a tool that further divides the north and the south of the earth. They should be a system that can include in development also peoples and persons that have been excluded for too long.
Penso che condividiate la sensazione.
I think you share my impression that there are some points that are clear, but at the same time the situation is far more complex than we thought it would be. So to conclude, Professor Prades, what is the starting point now? Should we wait for other rules and regulations, or what can we do? Well, we have this public approach that we were hearing about that tells us about the importance of a political dimension of the community. The fact that those who perform a political role, those who work in large corporations, technological corporations, they have their own responsibility for the reasons that we already mentioned. And we will not be there, but we have our own responsibility, a very serious one and a very important one. And that is, we are called to educate. This is our own responsibility, regardless of what we do. And that's because many of these phenomena can spread, and that happens when society is weak and the self-awareness of people is weak. And what can strengthen these abilities, these awareness? Well, we need human development to be strong, so that human development and technological development will go hand in hand. So we shouldn't always compare performances. In 1996, when there was a chess competition between Kasparov and Deep Blue, the first match was won by Kasparov. The second one was won by the computer. And Kasparov protested and said there was human support to that PC player. But my question is, did you stop playing chess because computers won? No. Maybe now you use some computer programs to improve your ability to play chess. So we shouldn't stop at the level of performance. We need to work for growth of our humanity. And this is something we do in the name of faith, because many of you who are here today, in your path towards faith, you learned what it means, reason, it means when we talk about reality, and what we mean but when we talk about morality knowledge, and what we mean when we say the need to interpret signs for an adult adoption to the concept of gift, the gift of meeting God. So it's important to add value to what we have, to the education we provide to our children. So we have challenges on all of these levels. My education, the education of my children, schools, universities, and so on. There are a lot of open problems with reference to artificial intelligence, but it's important to consider this as a heritage, as a source of richness. The Pope said that when it comes to artificial intelligence, we need a rule. The construction of Babel or the reconstruction of Jerusalem, they start inside each one of us. So as we were already involved in a path towards the creation of the human being, when meeting God and the Church, we should take things seriously. We cannot delegate to experts the resolution of problems. Experts should speak their mind, but we cannot delegate our educational responsibility to anyone, because it's very important for the children of the future. And when you see someone who's aware of what it means being human, you understand that is a source of hope. And it allows each one of us to give our own contribution to what the Pope proposed to us in the encyclical that is Magnificat Humanitas. Thank you. Now, I would like to conclude by mentioning something that the Pope said when he said, I encourage everyone, especially the lay faithful, to listen to each other and take their own and accept their own responsibility in the creation of a more humane and brotherly and fraternal society. I think this gives us hope, saying that when facing technological revolutions, we are not alone. Thank you. I would like to conclude by saying, please donate when you can. There are a lot of stands with the heart, the red heart, to characterize them. So thank you, and thank you to all our guests. Enjoy the evening.
Questo è un luogo che genera dialogo,
Qualcuno che si impegna, che si batte.
che approfondisce la conoscenza e sostiene la fiducia. È un crocevia dove si incontra chi desidera il vero, il bello, il giusto e il bene. È una testimonianza di speranza nel cuore ferito del presente. E tutto questo
Proporre con la propria vita.
esiste anche grazie a te.
mezzo al rumore serve qualcosa che duri.
El Papa León XIV.
Storie vere. Incontri che cambiano la vita. Persone che costruiscono. Uno sguardo originale su ciò che accade. Tutto questo è Tracce. Ora anche in una nuova versione digitale, per raccontare sempre più storie di gente che vive. Tracce, la rivista internazionale di Comunione e Liberazione. In mezzo al rumore serve qualcosa che duri.
El Papa León XIV.
Storie vere. Incontri che cambiano la vita. Persone che costruiscono. Uno sguardo originale su ciò che accade. Tutto questo è Tracce. Ora anche in una nuova versione digitale, per raccontare sempre più storie di gente che vive. Tracce, la rivista internazionale di Comunione e Liberazione.